Alien girl disrespected human veteran. She was begging for mercy seconds later. The air in the subterranean chamber tasted like dust and fear, thick enough to chew. Ash traced the schematic burned onto the fractured viewport with a grimy finger, trying to ignore the sound of chitinous claws skittering in the shadows beyond the single functional light panel. His shuttle, the Stardust Drifter, was little more than a tomb now, embedded like a broken tooth in the wall of this ancient place. He'd survived the crash, patched his own ribs, and even managed to seal the breach. But the comms were dead. The power was flickering, and the local fauna were clearly unhappy about the new addition to their ecosystem. Footsteps, heavier than the skittering things, echoed down a distant corridor. Not fauna, the locals. His hand instinctively went to the medical kit strapped to his thigh. Not much good in a fight, but it was his purpose now. The footsteps stopped just outside the viewport. Ash held his breath. A figure emerged from the gloom. Tall, slender, but with a presence that filled the cramped space. She wasn't like the projections they showed back on Earth. No big eyes, no smooth skin. Her form was articulated, encased in dark, segmented armor that seemed to absorb the meager light. Her head was elongated, featuring multiple complex eye clusters that observed him with an unnerving intensity. No discernible mouth, just a series of sonic vents and sensory filaments that pulsed faintly. A commander's insignia was etched into her breastplate. She didn't speak at first, just studied him, the wrecked shuttle, the flickering lights. Ash cleared his throat, wincing. All right, look, my ride's busted. Didn't mean to crash your party. I'm Ash. Human. Medic, mostly. Got anyone? A repair shop? A med bay? Failing that, a protein bar? Her response came not from the sonic vents, but seemed to resonate directly in the air around him. A low-frequency hum overlaid with sharp, crystalline tones that translated into his mind, not just to a trespasser, injured, weak form. The voice was cold, devoid of inflection, yet carried immense authority. The lack of verbal interaction, the direct mental communication, it threw him. Hey, I just walked away from that, he gestured to the wreck, and patched myself up with duct tape and positive thinking. I've had worse hangovers. The multi-eyes narrowed, focusing. Your survival is irrelevant. Your intrusion violates sacred silence. Judgment is required. She raised a hand. It wasn't a hand like his, but an array of fine, dexterous tendrils ending in sharp, almost surgical claws. They flexed slowly. Ash felt a prickle of real fear. Whoa, hang on there, Commander. Judgment? For a little fender bender. My people, we usually just exchange insurance info. Or yell a lot. Less, claw waving, her head tilted slightly. Your customs are noted. They are not relevant here. This space is for the echoes. You disturb their rest. She took a step closer, the light catching faint, intricate bioluminescent patterns, pulsing under her dark armor, mirroring the deeper, slower pulse of something within the walls themselves. Prepare for dissolution. Ash's dry humor evaporated. Dissolution sounded permanent and unpleasant. He had no weapons, no way to fight, but he did have hands, knowledge, and a lifetime of pulling impossible fixes out of thin air. He looked at the complex weave of damaged conduits exposed in the shuttle's wall, the humming energy field holding back the vacuum on the other side of the patch. An idea, reckless and probably stupid, sparked. It involved diverting power, overloading a non-essential system, and hoping the resulting energy surge would be disorienting enough. It was a long shot, a desperate, Hail Mary long shot, but facing dissolution by alien claws, he liked his odds better with a Hail Mary. All right, tough crowd, Ash muttered, scrambling back towards the wrecked console, his fingers already moving with practice speed over damaged circuits. Let's see if your sacred silence can handle a little bit interference. He worked furiously, ignoring the alien's silent, ominous approach. Wires sparked, panels groaned. He was counting seconds, judging the distance. The humming resonance of her presence intensified, pressing in on him. He felt a strange, resonant frequency building, aimed squarely at him. She wasn't just walking, she was building some kind of energy field, a dissolution effect. It felt less like a physical attack and more like unmaking. He jammed the last connection, rerouting power from the life support recycler into the comms array, bypassing the damaged primary and forcing the secondary backup emitter to engage with raw, unregulated power. It wasn't designed to broadcast. It was designed to disrupt. The moment her tendrils extended fully, poised to strike, he slammed the activation button. A blinding flash erupted from the comms array, accompanied by a shriek of tortured energy that vibrated through the rock itself. It wasn't just visual, it was sonic, thermal, and something else. A wave of chaotic, unfocused resonance that slammed into the alien commander. Her multi-eyes flared wide. The intricate bioluminescent patterns on her armor went wild, pulsing erratically, then dimmed. The low hum of her presence vanished, replaced by a sharp, high-pitched whine that cut through the air. She recoiled violently, stumbling back, clutching at her head, her segmented joints locking up. The fine tendrils spasmed. Ash watched, astonished. He hadn't expected that. Disorientation, maybe. A system overload. But she looked genuinely pained. The cold, commanding presence that had radiated from her just moments ago was gone, replaced by something akin to distress. The crystalline voice that had translated into his mind was gone too, replaced by faint, broken whispers that still somehow found their way into his thoughts. Less translation, more raw emotion, pain, resonance shattered, impossible. Cease. The formal, ritualistic tone was gone, replaced by something frantic, urgent. The tendrils that had been poised to dissolve him were now curled inward. Protective. She stumbled again, hitting the cavern wall, her armored form shuddering, begging for mercy. It clicked, the disrupted resonance, her unique physiology, maybe the sheer wrongness of the unregulated energy wave, slamming into her delicate sensory systems. It had broken through her control, her composure. The cold tactician was overwhelmed, exposed. Ash lowered his hand, the faint smell of ozone in the air. He hadn't meant to hurt her. Not like this. Just make her pause, give him time to think. But he'd hit some Minton and vulnerability. He approached cautiously, watching her struggle. Hey, Commander?
Are you okay?
Look, I'm sorry, I didn't know it would do that. You were going to dissolve me. He kept his distance, unsure if this was a tactic or genuine incapacitation. Her segmented head lifted slightly, the many eyes focusing on him, no longer cold but wide with something he couldn't quite read. Shock, confusion, the whispering thoughts intensified. Less structured now. Unbound. To see too much. Help me. Help her? The alien who wanted to unmake him. This was textbook stranger in a strange land, getting weird. He was a medic. His instinct was to help injured things, regardless of species or prior threats. This was different, though. This felt dangerous in a way physical threats weren't. It felt invasive. He could feel echoes of her distress. A chaotic flood of sensory input, shimmering light, vibrating stone, unheard frequencies, all overwhelming her. He had, effectively, noise-bombed her brain with pure chaos. Okay, don't seize up on me, Ash said, slowly approaching. What do I do? How do I help? She pointed a shaking tendril array towards his chest. Your silence. Use your lack. His silence? Humans didn't resonate or hume or translate thoughts into the air. Their minds were noisy, chaotic, but internally so. They were silent in the way her people weren't. Maybe his lack of active resonance could act as a shield. He was still wary, but the distress radiating from her felt real. He took a deep breath and took another step closer, extending a hand slowly. Okay, silence. Got it. Just try not to dissolve me by accident this time. He reached out. In the moment his fingertips brushed the smooth, cool surface of her armor near where the bioluminescent patterns were still flickering wildly, he felt it. Not physically. Not exactly. It was a sensation that bypassed touch and went straight to the core of him, a sudden overwhelming influx. Everything. The chaotic sensory noise lessened, seemingly drawn towards his contact point, but something else replaced it. Memories. Not his, hers, flashes of cold, starlit voids, of vast, echoing halls, of Collick's geometric patterns that pulsed with light and meaning. Grief. Raw, deep grief. Sharp as cut crystal, flooding through the connection. He saw, felt, experienced moments of loss, of standing solitary in immense spaces, a weight of responsibility that would crush a human soul. He recoiled instantly, stumbling back, gasping, the sudden flood of emotion and alien sensation, leaving him dizzy and disoriented. The connection snapped. Her trembling subsided slightly. The chaotic resonance lessened further. Seemingly absorbed or dampened by the brief contact, the multi-eyes focused on him again, but the vulnerability was still there, raw and exposed. The silence that anchors. It disrupts the chaos. Her voice was still the crystalline translation in his mind, but it was weaker, colored with lingering shock. No other being has achieved this. No echo-kin can endure the unbound resonance without succumbing. Echo-kin. Was that her species? Resonance. Echoes. It was all tied together. Echoes? What are you talking about? Ash asked, trying to steady his breathing. The grief he'd felt, it was intense, overwhelming. It wasn't just a feeling. It was a landscape, a history. She slowly, shakily, straightened, pushing off the wall. The self-control was beginning to reassert itself, but the effort was visible in the subtle tremors of her joints and the way her sensory filaments remained curled inwards. The archives, the purpose of the silent towers, to contain and preserve the echoes of those who came before. Resonance is our lifeblood, our history. Unfiltered, it is overwhelming. The disruption you created shattered the filters. Your silence, it is a void that absorbs. She looked at him, a long, evaluating stare that was different from the cold judgment of moments ago. You are a weapon, unintentional but potent, a disruptor of resonance. A weapon? Him? He was a mechanic and a medic, not a disruptor. I just overloaded a broken comm system. I don't go around weaponizing silence. That's not a thing. It is now. The crystalline voice was gaining strength. The formal cadence returning, though tinged with something new. Curiosity, calculation, the corruption. It seeks to unbound the echoes, to control the past and dominate the future. They believe only pure resonance holds truth. They are fools, without containment, without form. The echoes are chaos. The matriarchs foresaw a disruptor, a silence in the storm. She stepped fully away from the wall, her posture regaining some of its previous rigidity. I am Commander Lyra, tactician of the 6th Archive Layer. You have proven unexpectedly useful, perhaps necessary. Ash stared at her. Matriarchs? Corruption? A silence in the storm? He just wanted to fix his ship and find a way home. Maybe get a decent meal. Instead, he'd apparently stumbled into an ancient conflict involving psychic echoes, corrupted priests, and his own inexplicable ability to act as an alien neural dampener. So, I broke your brain filter, felt your deepest grief by accident. And now I'm a prophecy? Is that about right? He couldn't help the dry humor, the sheer absurdity of it. Lyra paused, her multi-eyes unreadable for a moment. Your summary is crude, but contains a kernel of accuracy. She moved towards the corridor she had emerged from. The echoes are stirred. We must find the source of the disruption. And you must learn to control your silence. She didn't wait for a response, simply began walking with a fluid, silent grace, despite the segmented armor. Ash hesitated for a moment, looking back at the wreck of his shuttle, then at the dark, echoing corridor, going with the strange alien commander who could translate her thoughts into his head, and felt grief like a physical wound, seemed like the only option that didn't involve being eaten by skittering things, or dissolved. Control my silence, he muttered, shaking his head. This is officially the weirdest Tuesday. He fell into step behind her, the faint, chaotic whispers of disturbed echoes seeming to pulse in the air around them. The subterranean halls of the silent towers were immense, carved from stone that seemed to absorb light. Lyra moved with purpose, her segmented armor barely making a sound. Ash, in his battered human gear, felt clumsy and loud by comparison. The air grew colder the deeper they went, carrying the scent of ancient dust and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet that made his teeth ache. The bioluminescent patterns on Lyra's armor remained dimmed, flickering only slightly with her movement, a stark contrast to the vibrant, chaotic display during the disruption. So, these echoes, Ash began, trying to make sense of it. They're like ghosts or recorded memories. Lyra's reply came, precise and formal, directly into his mind. They are the residual resonance of sentient life that has passed within these layers. Our ancestors, thinkers, architects, warriors. Their thoughts, their emotions, their knowledge, imprinted upon the very structure of the towers. The matriarchs built these archives to contain and organize them, to prevent the living from being overwhelmed, to learn from the past without drowning in it. Right, drowning in Grandpa's thoughts. Fun. It is essential for our continuity. Resonance guides our society, our decisions, our bonds. She paused, turning one of her multi-eyed clusters towards him. Your species. You do not resonate? Your minds are truly islands? Ash shrugged, more like noisy cities with bad traffic. But yeah, we don't broadcast or translate thoughts into solid objects, or whatever it is you guys do. Fascinating and dangerous. A mind without external resonance is unpredictable. Untethered. Untethered is usually how I like it, Ash said. He noticed sections of the corridor where the stones seemed disturbed, crudely broken rather than carved. Looks like someone else has been having a party down here. Lyra stopped, her sensory filaments extending slightly. The corruption, they desecrate the archive layers, searching for the pure echo. A myth. There is only the collective, filtered through ritual and structure. But they are desperate. She pointed a tendril towards a section of wall, where faint, chaotic bioluminescent patterns pulsed in the stone itself. This is their work. They are attempting to force the echoes to manifest unbound. Ash felt a faint echo of the chaotic resonance he'd felt earlier, a tremor of noise deep in his skull. It was like listening to 1,000 radio stations playing at once, just barely audible. They're trying to weaponize history. They believe the raw echo holds power the filtered resonance does not. Power to reshape society, to enforce their will. The priesthood of the unbound have seized control of the upper layers. We of the archive guard are few. Our resonance alone cannot withstand their numbers, nor their methods. He watched her, seeing not just the alien commander, but the strain beneath the surface. The cold tactician was also a guardian, overwhelmed and outnumbered. So, they want to break the library, and I'm the librarian's noise-canceling headphones? A crude analogy again, but yes, your presence, the effect of your silence on the unbound resonance. It may be the only thing that can shield us and allow us to act. They continued deeper. The metallic scent grew stronger. They passed chambers filled with strange silent machinery, glowing crystals, and walls inscribed with glowing runes. Some areas were pristine, others showed signs of recent violent intrusion. Lyra moved with increasing tension, her tendrils occasionally flexing. Ash kept his distance, wary. The accidental intimacy of the resonance disruption had unnerved him more than her initial threat. Feeling that raw, ancient grief, that sense of crushing isolation, it was a level of exposure he wasn't used to. Humans built walls around their pain. This species seemed to store it in the architecture. Commander, Ash said, keeping his voice low, when I touched you, I felt something. Something like sorrow. A lot of it. Lyra froze. Her armor patterns dimmed further, becoming almost invisible. She didn't turn. That was unintended. A side effect of the resonance being forced through your contact point. Her voice was colder than before, retreating behind her tactical mask. Do not speak of it. A stark order. But he'd seen the flicker of vulnerability. Hey, look, I get it. We all have baggage. Believe me. He touched his own ribs, remembering shrapnel and screams. He'd buried that deep. Her people apparently put it on public display in the stone. You're kind. You bury it? That is inefficient. And messy, he thought, but didn't say. Inefficient, maybe, but it keeps you functional, Ash said, choosing his words carefully. Look, if we're going to do this, Silence in the storm thing. We need to be on the same page. I need to know what we're up against. Really up against. Not just tactical reports. Irel was silent for a long moment. He could feel her evaluating him, weighing the risk. The air grew thick with unspoken things. The priesthood of the unbound were once guardians, loyal to the matriarch's balance, but they became obsessed. They believe the filtered echoes are lies propaganda used by the ruling houses to maintain control. They seek the pure truth in the unbound chaos. Their methods are extreme. They are willing to shatter the very foundations of our society to find it. She finally turned, her multi-eyes fixing on him. They have operatives in every layer. Spies, saboteurs, and they have methods of coercion, using unbound resonance. Methods that could break any echo kin. The unspoken implication hung in the air. Methods that might not work on him. The silence in the storm. He was a wild card. A shield. Maybe even a weapon. They moved deeper into the silent towers. The air growing colder and the metallic tang more pronounced. Lyra was a creature of efficient movement, navigating the labyrinthine corridors with an innate sense of direction. Ash, despite his discomfort with the echoing vastness and the sense of unseen eyes, kept pace. His boots seemed deafening on the smooth stone floor. They passed intricate carvings that seemed to writhe with captured light. Depiction scenes he couldn't decipher, but felt held immense meaning for Lyra's people. Some of these carvings were scarred, defaced with rough tools, the work of the corruption. They really hate history, huh? Ash commented, looking at a particularly beautiful ruined frieze. Lyra stopped, her tendrils reaching out to hover inches from the damaged surface. They do not hate history. They believe they are liberating it, unshackling it from what they perceive as the lies of the ruling houses. They seek to rewrite the present by force manifesting the past. The coldness in her voice had a new edge, protective, almost mournful. Ash saw a flicker of the grief he'd felt earlier. This place wasn't just a building to her. It was woven into her very being, an extension of her culture and its pain. Each carving, each layer, holds the collective resonance of generations. To deface it is to silence an echo before its time. She retracted her tendrils, her armor patterns pulsing with a faint, sad light. My bloodline, we are oath-bound to the archive guard. For generations, it is all I have known. It was the closest she'd come to a personal revelation since their first accidental connection. Ash recognized that kind of burden, duty, lineage, carrying the weight of expectation. It was heavy even for humans. For her people, whose very identity seemed tied to this resonant history, it must be crushing. Must be tough, Ash said quietly. Lyra turned, her head tilted again, the multi-eyes studying him. Your understanding, unexpected. Your people carry such weights. We call it tradition, or legacy, or sometimes just a pain in the ass, Ash said. Small, dry smile touching his lips. But family, job, country, whatever it is, we carry it. And your burden? What does the wounded healer carry? The directness took him aback. He hadn't told her he was a wounded healer. It was in his file, his history, but not something he broadcast. Did she pick that up from the echoes? Or from him, through the lingering resonance of their contact? He hesitated, the smile fading. Stuff. Things that break. People that don't heal right. His hand went back to his ribs. Not the shrapnel. That was just physical. The other wounds. The ones that didn't close. He looked at her, this alien woman of living resonance and stone archives. She carried the grief of a culture. He carried the quiet weight of personal failures. Maybe they weren't so in their burdens, just in how they expressed them. The corruption seeks something specific here, Lyra continued, her voice shifting back to tactical analysis, pulling away from the brief moment of shared vulnerability. Not just to unbound random echoes. There is a specific protocol, sealed by the matriarchs themselves, deep within the lowest archive. It contains the seed echo, the foundational resonance from the dawn of our civilization. If they can access and corrupt that, they could rewrite everything. Our history, our laws, our very identity. The threat was immense. Existential. Not just a political power struggle, but a war for the soul of a species. And you think they're heading there? To the lowest level? It is the logical conclusion of their accession. The seed echo is the pure echo of their myths. They arrived at a massive sealed portal inscribed with complex, glowing runes. It pulsed with a deep, steady resonance that felt ancient and powerful. This is the gateway to the lowest archive. It requires a sequence of resonant keys to open, keys held by the matriarchal houses and the archives guard. Lyra placed her tendrils on a panel next to the gate. A soft light spread beneath her touch, tracing the patterns on her armor. The gate pulsed in response, but did not open. My lineage holds one key, but the sequence requires 5. And the other 4? Ash asked, already guessing. Held by houses loyal to the matriarchs, or compromised by the corruption. Lyra withdrew her tendrils, a frustrated hum resonating in the air around her. We cannot proceed alone. A sudden, sharp alarm blared through the silent halls, a jarring, mechanical sound that felt wrong in this ancient place. Red emergency lights flashed in the distance. Intrusion detected. Upper layers breached. Lyra's posture became rigid, tactical. They are here. They have found us. The sound of distant energy discharges echoed through the stone. They have forced entry into the layers above. The blare of the intrusion alert ripped through the silence of the archives. Lyra snapped into action, her previous reticence about her grief, replaced by sharp, decisive commands that resonated in Ash's mind. They are attempting a vertical descent, likely targeting key nodes to disable the remaining security protocols on the seed echo gate. She moved back towards the corridor they had come from, her segmented legs carrying her with rapid grace. Ash followed close behind. Okay, vertical descent. What does that mean for us? It means they are using force, breaching layers designed to withstand geological stress. It will destabilize the structure, and it will drive the unbound echoes towards us, seeking the path of least resistance created by the breaches. Great. Not only were they facing zealots with unknown weapons, but the building was also becoming a psychic wind tunnel aimed directly at their location. Psychic wind tunnel. Right. Anything else I should know? Ash muttered. They will utilize resonance weapons. Disruptors similar to the one you accidentally created, but controlled. Done to incapacitate or even consume Echokin. Lyra led him into a side chamber filled with complex, glowing machinery. Archive storage units, he guessed. This is an old data nexus. Minimal security protocols remaining, but it connects to the layer above. We may be able to intercept their descent, slow them, or at least gather intelligence. She gestured towards a large console covered in glowing controls and intricate displays. Can you interface with this? Navigate our systems? Ash looked at the alien interface. It was completely unlike anything he'd ever worked with. No keyboards, no screens in the human sense. It responded to resonant touch, to subtle energy manipulation. His skill set was physical, wires, circuits, mechanics, not resonant energy. Commander, my expertise is in breaking things and occasionally fixing bodies. This looks like glowing math. With feelings, Lyra turned to him, her multi-eyes fixing on him. Your silence, your ability to disrupt resonance. Perhaps you can interface by creating a void, a point of negative resonance that forces the system to respond. It sounded like educated guesswork based on his accidental disruption. It sounded dangerous. Or I could blow it up, Ash suggested dryly. That would be counterproductive. She placed her hand on the console. The panels beneath her touch pulsed with light, displaying complex data streams that flowed like liquid light. My resonance can navigate the system, but my attention is divided, and I cannot risk overexposure to unbound echoes drawn by the breaches. Your silence. Though it may provide the stability I need. A counterpoint. Forced proximity. Again. This time, forced connection. He felt a prickle of unease. Connecting to alien systems, especially with his weird silence effect, felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. But the alternative was letting the corrupted priesthood breach their defenses and access the seed echo. Okay, Ash said, taking a deep breath. What do I do? Place your hand here. She indicated a large, smooth panel in the center of the console, separate from the active displays. Focus on the absence, the void within you. Let your silence expand. Encompass the panel. Do not try to tune to the resonance. Simply be still against it. Ash hesitated. Be still against ancient alien psychic energy? This was way outside his job description. But Lyra looked at him with an intensity that was less commander, more desperate guardian. He saw the weight of her oath, the fear for her world, etched in the subtle shifts of her posture and the dimming of her armor patterns. He owed her in a strange way. He'd almost been dissolved, then accidentally incapacitated her, then felt her grief. They were tied now, by accident and necessity. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the panel. It was cool, smooth, completely inert. He closed his eyes and tried to follow her instruction. Focus on the absence. The void within. It was hard. His mind was usually buzzing with plans, anxieties, memories. He had to push all that down, find the quiet center, the part that survived the shrapnel, the loss, the trauma, the part that just kept going, silent and focused. He felt the faintest tremor beneath his hand, not physical, resonance, the vibrant, complex energy of the system, just barely perceptible through his inherent silence. He pushed down harder, metaphorically, tried to make the void bigger, deeper. The tremor intensified. The panel beneath his hand began to attort light, becoming a patch of utter blackness against the glowing console. Lyra made a sharp, resonant sound of surprise. It worked. She moved her own tendrils over the active displays, her resonance flowing, navigating the system's complex architecture. Ash felt a faint pull, a counterpoint to his silence, the structured, deliberate flow of her consciousness moving through the system. With Ash's silence anchoring the interface panel, creating a stable void in the complex resonant field, Lyra was able to navigate the ancient data nexus. He could feel the flow of energy beneath his hand, her purposeful, structured resonance moving like a skilled diver through complex currents, while his was simply a heavy anchor, preventing the system's wild energy from overwhelming her. The metallic tang in the air intensified, mixed now with a faint, high-pitched whine that set Ash's teeth on edge. The sounds of fighting from the layers above grew louder, close energy discharges, structural groans, and the chilling, discordant clamor of unbound echoes, being forcefully disturbed. They are targeting the main power conduits in the layer above us, Lyra communicated, her thoughts sharp and focused. Disabling the resonance seals on the gate requires immense power. They seek to divert it. Ash maintained his focus, trying to keep the void stable. His arm was starting to ache, his mind weary from the effort of suppressing his own internal noise and remaining silent against the external resonance. Can you stop them? Reroute power? Lock them out? He asked, keeping his voice low. Rerouting is complex. Locking them out is impossible without the key sequence. I can delay them, misdirect them, but their access is increasing. Data streams flowed across the console, displaying a schematic of the silent towers, layers upon layers, with markers indicating the intruder's progress. They were moving fast. There is a secondary power conduit in the next chamber, Lyra said. Less protected, if they breach it, they gain significant leverage. She withdrew her tendrils from the console, the black void beneath Ash's hand shrinking slightly. We must secure it. Weapons? Ash asked. His medical kit wasn't going to cut it against whatever the corrupted priesthood were packing. Lyra moved towards a rack mounted on the wall. Ancient artifacts, maybe. She selected 2 items. One was a sleek, segmented device that pulsed with internal light, archive guard resonance projectors, designed to shape and contain unbound echoes. They can also deliver a focused resonant shock, though less lethal than the priesthood's weapons. She handed one to Ash. It was surprisingly light. This requires a tuned resonance to wield effectively. Your silence. It may allow you to disrupt its function, but not control it. Great. An alien psychic weapon he couldn't use properly. So you get the cool mind gun, and I get the paperweight of silence? Your silence is the shield. My resonance is the weapon. Combined, they may offer a defense. She held the other projector, her tendrils expertly wrapping around the grip. But we must move quickly. They left the data nexus and moved into the next chamber. It was smaller, dominated by a massive energy conduit, glowing with contained power. The air here vibrated with intensity, They weren't alone. Two figures in darker, more ornate segmented armor were already there, working on the conduit panel, the priesthood. They turned as Ash and Lyra entered, their multi-eyes fixing on them. Their armor pulsed with a sickly, chaotic light, mirroring the unbound echoes Ash could hear screaming faintly at the edges of his perception. Lyra of the Archive Guard, one of the figures resonated, the sound harsh and grating compared to Lyra's clear tones. You resist the truth. You cling to the illusions of the matriarchs. The truth is not found in chaos, Kalen. Lyra responded, her voice firm. You seek to shatter the foundations, not reveal them. Kalen, so she knew him. This was personal, maybe, or political. The priesthood figures raised their arms, resonance projectors held ready. These were bulkier, cruder than Lyra's, pulsing with raw, unfocused energy. Step aside, Lyra, and yield the silence in the storm. He is the key to the pure echo. Ash tensed. They knew about him. Kalen's gaze swept over Ash, a hungry, appraising look. The prophesied disruption. Come, human. Join the liberation of resonance. Pass, Ash said flatly. I'm good where I am. The second priesthood figure lunged. Lyra reacted instantly, raising her projector. A beam of focused resonance shot out, striking the attacker. There was no physical impact, no explosion, but the figure reeled back, their chaotic armor patterns flickering wildly, their movements becoming jerky and disoriented, like the resonance disruption had affected Lyra earlier. The other figure, Kalen, moved towards Ash, seemingly ignoring Lyra for the moment. The silence is vulnerable on its own. Unanchored, Ash didn't understand the alien physics, the resonance, the echoes, but he understood a threat coming at him. He raised the projector Lyra had given him. It felt useless in his hand, a dead weight against Kalen's approach. Kalen reached out, not with a weapon, but with a tendril, aiming for Ash's chest. Ash felt a surge of pure, raw, unbound resonance, directed at him, a chaotic wave threatening to overwhelm him. To force open the silence he'd struggled to maintain. The wave of unbound resonance hit Ash like a physical blow, staggering him. It wasn't just force, it was a chaotic torrent of alien sensation, fragmented memories, screaming emotions, the raw, unfiltered echoes the priesthood sought to control. He felt 1,000 disjointed lives slamming into his own quiet center, threatening to shatter it. His shield was his silence, the inherent lack of resonance in his human biology. But the sheer volume of the attack was immense. He gasped, doubling over, clutching the useless resonance projector. He could feel his carefully constructed internal walls cracking under the pressure. Across the chamber, Lyra was locked in a rapid exchange of focused resonance beams with the other priesthood figure, her movements precise and economical. She couldn't reach him. Kalen advanced, eyes glowing with fanaticism. Yield, silence. Let the echoes flow through you. Become the conduit. He reached for Ash again, his tendril aiming for the same spot Lyra had touched earlier. Ash saw the intent, to force a connection, to use him as a weaponized conduit for the unbound geckos. He couldn't let that happen. He focused, desperation sharpening his intent. His silence. It wasn't just a lack of resonance. It was a void, a negative space. If he couldn't fight the wave, maybe he could absorb it, like the console panel had. He forced himself to straighten, took a shaky breath, and met Kalen's gaze. He focused all his will, all his ingrained control, on expanding the void within him, turning himself into a black hole for the chaotic resonance. He didn't know if it would work. He didn't know if it would kill him. But it was the only weapon he had. He extended his own hand, palm open towards Kalen's approaching tendril. Fool, you cannot contain this. Kalen's resonant voice boomed, laced with triumph. The torrent of unbound echoes intensified, aimed directly at Ash's outstretched hand. The moment their points of contact met, Ash felt a sickening lurch, as if his soul was being pulled inside out. The world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of chaotic light and sound. He saw fleeting, agonizing glimpses of alien experiences, falling through a starless void, the crushing weight of planetary ice, the silent, lonely growth of crystal cities, the final thoughts of dying matriarchs. It was a universe of pain, fear, and lost knowledge, all compressed into a single unbearable moment. He grit his teeth, refusing to break, focusing on the void, pulling it all in. He didn't understand how it was possible, how a human mind could withstand this. But he held on. He pulled. Kalen recoiled with a shriek, a physical, audible sound that was raw with pain. Impossible. The silence is devouring. The chaotic resonance stream reversed, flowing into ash, but also back into Kalen, tearing at his control, at his very being. His armor patterns went wild, pulsing erratically, then began to dim, not just flickering, but collapsing inward. His segmented form shuddered violently. He stumbled back, eyes wide with terror, releasing ash. The torrent of echoes snapped off. The chamber was suddenly quiet, the metallic tang fading, replaced by the scent of ozone and burnt circuits. The other priesthood figure, momentarily distracted by Kalen's agony, was struck by a precisely aimed resonance beam from Lyra, collapsing in a heap, incapacitated. Kalen stared at Ash, not with fanaticism, but with sheer, absolute horror. Ash stood panting, trembling, the cacophony of the unbound echoes still ringing in his mind like phantom limbs. He had absorbed something, a fraction of the chaos, enough to hurt Kalen, maybe break his connection to the source of the unbound resonance. Mercy, Kalen's resonant voice whispered, raw and broken, directed at Ash. Release me, the chaos. Too much. Begging. Not for physical mercy, but for release from the torment Ash's silence had inflicted. It was the reverse of their first encounter. Then Lyra had been overwhelmed by the disruption. Now Kalen was broken by the absorption. Ash looked at the pleading figure, then at Lyra, who had lowered her weapon, watching them with intense, unreadable multi-eyes. He had defeated Kalen not by force, but by being the ultimate psychic sponge. He lowered his hand, the void receding, the chaotic echoes settling into a dull hum at the back of his mind. He didn't understand the mechanics, only the result. Kalen crumpled to the floor, unconscious, his armor patterns dark and still. Ash stood trembling, the psychic residue of 1,000 alien lives buzzing in his skull. Kalen lay inert on the floor, defeated not by force, but by Ash's sheer, stubborn silence. Lyra approached cautiously, her multi-eyes scanning Kalen's fallen form, then settling on Ash. You absorbed the unbound echoes, filtered them through your silence. Her voice held a note of awe, tinged with apprehension. No echo kin could achieve this. It would mean immediate dissolution. You are an anomaly beyond comprehension. Ash felt drained, his energy depleted. He could still feel faint echoes of the chaos he'd absorbed, a low hum of alien sorrow and forgotten dreams. Anomaly, right, just trying not to get dissolved, remember? He managed a weak, dry grin. Lyra was silent for a moment, studying him. Her armor patterns began to pulse again, slowly, steadily, no longer dimmed by stress, but reflecting a newfound contemplation. The matriarch's prophecy spoke of a silence in the storm that would anchor the resonant against the chaos. They believed it would be a concept, a ritual state. Not a being. She gestured to Kalen. His mind is broken. The unbound echoes he sought to control have been processed, rendered inert by your presence. Ash shivered, despite the ambient temperature of the chamber. Processing alien consciousness, wrong, like digesting ghosts. So I'm not just a shield. I'm a psychic disposal unit. Your terms are unsettling, but functionally accurate. You have proven yourself capable of neutralizing their primary weapon, and perhaps Cunnan the source of their power. She looked towards the sealed gate leading to the lowest archive. If the seed echo is the root of their power and you can process unbound resonance, the implication hung in the air, heavy with potential. He was the key, not just to defend the towers but to end the threat entirely. Lyra moved to Kalen's side, her tendrils carefully searching his armor. He carries one of the matriarchal keys. The priesthood consolidated them. She extracted a glowing crystal from a hidden compartment. This is the second key. She held it up, the crystal pulsing in sync with her armor patterns. There are still 3 others, likely held by their high command. They secured the unconscious priesthood figures, using some sort of resonant energy cuffs that Lyra carried. The intrusion alarms had died down. The sounds of fighting faded. Ash assumed Lyra's initial misdirection and his neutralization of Kalen had bought them time. We must locate the remaining keys, Lyra stated, turning towards the exit of the chamber. The priesthood will realize Kalen has failed. They will redouble their efforts. Ash nodded, rubbing his aching temples. The headache was manageable, but the faint echo heme was persistent. Any idea where the other keys are? Their high command would be at the focal point of their operation, the nexus where they were consolidating power, perhaps near the main power conduits they were targeting. Lyra led the way, moving with renewed urgency. As they moved through the corridors, Ash noticed the atmosphere felt different. Less oppressive, the chaotic resonance was muted. The air cleaner, his disruption, his processing, had had a tangible effect. They passed more damaged areas, evidence of the priesthood's destructive path. Lyra pointed out tactical information etched into the stone, troop movements, energy signatures she could read with her resonance. Ash, using his human eyes, spotted details she might miss. Scuff marks, dropped tools, traces of weird alien chemicals. Their combined perspective was proving effective. Your observational skills are granular, Lyra noted. You see the small things the resonance overlooks. Comes from fixing things, Ash replied. Details matter. They reached a junction point where the corridor split into 3 paths. One led upwards, towards the layers where the fighting had been. One continued level, towards the estimated location of the power nexus. The third descended steeply into darkness. The high command will be in the nexus layer, Lyra stated, but the descent that leads to the deepest access tunnels. A potential bypass, but highly unstable and uncharted. The matriarch sealed it for a reason. Ash looked at the descending path. It felt wrong, a source of deeper chaos, even without the unbound echoes. Gut feeling says that's a bad idea, he said. Lyra paused, her multi-eyes scanning the dark opening. Your gut feeling. Another untethered variable, but she didn't dismiss it. Resonance predicts the nexus layer. But the corruption is unpredictable in their desperation. The air from the descending tunnel felt colder, heavier, carrying a fainter, but deeper, hum of resonance. Not chaotic, but ancient, powerful, and unsettling. It felt like the tower's own heartbeat, disturbed. That is the resonance of the deep structure. Lyra murmured, the roots of the silent towers. Something is active down there. The chilling resonance from the descending tunnel made Lyra hesitate. It wasn't the chaotic, unbound energy of the priesthood, but something older, deeper, a fundamental vibration of the silent towers themselves, now stirring. Ash felt it too, a low, persistent hum that resonated not just in his skull, but in his bone. That doesn't feel like the bad guys, Ash said, trying to articulate the non-resonant sensation. It feels like the building woke up, and it's not happy. Lyra's multi-eyes focused on the dark descent. The deep structure should be quiescent, dormant. Its resonant should be silent, except for the heartbeat of the seed echo. Her armor patterns pulsed with a mixture of apprehension and intense curiosity. What could disturb the roots? Logic dictated the priesthood's high command would be in the power nexus layer, but the stirring of the deep structure felt more significant, more fundamentally wrong. If the priesthood's goal was the seed echo, perhaps they were attacking the root directly, trying to force it upwards or corrupt it from below. The nexus is the head, Lyra resonated, her voice thoughtful. But the deep structure is the heart. She looked at Ash. Your perception. It is not bound by the expected flow of resonance. What do you sense down there, beyond the mere presence? Ash closed his eyes, focusing past the lingering echo hum in his head. He felt a pressure, like something immense was trying to force its way through a barrier. Not a physical pressure, but resonant. And it wasn't chaotic. It was structured, deliberate, but utterly alien and immense. And hungry. It feels like something big is pushing, Ash said slowly. Like it's trying to get out. Or maybe in, and it's using the tower's own power. The matriarch's warnings, Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible even in his mind. Of the entity contained within the deep structure. The reason the lowest levels were sealed. The entity, great. So the corrupted priesthood weren't the only bad guys. There was something else, sealed away, and the priesthood's meddling might be letting it out. They were fools. Lyra resonated, her frustration a sharp wave. Seeking the seed echo is madness enough, but disturbing the containment protocols for the deep entity. They will unleash a destruction far greater than any they could wield. This was a major pivot. The priesthood were still a threat, holding the keys, but now they were also naive catalysts for a potentially apocalyptic event. Their conflict had just gone from a political religious power struggle to trying to stop cultists from waking a monster. So, new plan? Ash asked. Lyra nodded, a decisive movement. We must descend. We must reach the deep structure before the priesthood unleashes the entity. The keys. We must retrieve them, yes, but stopping the entity takes precedence. It will destroy the echoes, the towers, everything, the unspoken tension between them, the accidental intimacy, the cultural divide, the forced reliance, seemed to sharpen in the face of this new existential threat. They were partners, bound by sheer necessity, descending into the unknown depths, towards a sealed entity and desperate cultists, was the most dangerous path, but now the only one. The descent is unstable, Lyra warned, designed to collapse if the seals are breached. We will face not only the priesthood, but the architecture itself. She moved towards the descending passage, her armor patterns now pulsing with grim determination. Ash followed, adjusting his grip on the useless resonance projector. He was just a human medic, a mechanic, a survivor, thrust into an ancient alien conflict, now apparently tasked with stopping an apocalypse by acting as a psychic vacuum cleaner while descending into a self-destructing building. He shook his head, managing a wry smile despite the fear coiling in his gut. Just another Tuesday, he muttered. The air grew colder, the strange deep resonance more pronounced. As they stepped into the darkness of the descending tunnel, the descent was treacherous. The passage wasn't carved like the upper levels but seemed naturally occurring, twisted and uneven, reinforced in places with ancient metallic structures that groaned under unseen stress. The low hum of the deep structure's resonance grew stronger with every step, a vibration that felt like immense power barely held in check. It resonated with Ash in a way he couldn't explain, a deep, primal feeling of something ancient and powerful stirring beneath the surface. Lyra moved with cautious precision, her tendrils occasionally touching the walls, reading the resonant feedback, navigating unstable sections. Ash focused on his footing, keeping an eye on their backs. The silence here was different from the sterile quiet of the archives. It was a heavy, expectant silence, punctuated by the distant sounds of shifting stone and the low, resonant thrumming. The architecture is reacting to the disturbance, Lyra communicated. The matriarchs built these lower layers to collapse inwards, to seal the entity permanently if the containment protocols were violated. They were walking through a deliberate death trap. Ash swore under his breath. So if they succeed in waking it up, the whole place caves in on us? Likely, Lyra confirmed, no trace of emotion in her voice. Just cold, tactical assessment. Our goal is to reach the containment chamber before the collapse is irreversible and retrieve the keys before they can use them on the seed echo. The deeper they went, the less Ash felt the lingering echo hum from the upper layers, and the more he felt the presence of the deep entity. It was a pressure, a vast passive awareness that seemed to stretch far beyond the immediate tunnels. It felt like looking into the mind of a mountain, slow, immense, and utterly indifferent. But now, it was waking, becoming active. They encountered evidence of the priesthood's passage, forced openings, discarded equipment, the faint, lingering tang of chaotic resonance. The corrupted were here. Lyra stopped abruptly, raising a tendril for silence. Ash froze. He heard it too. Alien voices, resonant and distorted, coming from ahead. The high command Lyra resonated softly. They are close, and they are using unbound resonance to force open the final seals. A powerful surge of chaotic energy pulsed through the tunnels, shaking the stone. Ash felt it as a violent jolt in his mind. A wave of pure noise. The deep structure's resonance pulsed in response. A deep, angry thrum. They are actively weakening the containment field, Lyra stated, her posture tense. They believe they can control the entity, bind it using the seed echo's power. It was suicidal. Ash realized they weren't just trying to access the seed echo. They were trying to combine it with the unleashed entity, creating something potentially unstoppable. Lyra moved forward again, more cautiously now, the useless resonance projector held ready. Ash stayed right behind her, wishing he had something more substantial than a glorified psychic dampener. He felt the void within him expanding instinctively, trying to counter the growing wave of chaotic and deep resonance, pressing in. They rounded a bend and entered a large cavernous space. In the center stood a massive glowing pillar of pure, contained resonance, the seed echo. It pulsed with a steady, ancient light, the heart of the silent towers. Around it, gathered in a circle, were the priesthood high command, figures in ornate dark armor, their armor patterns pulsing with intense, chaotic light, and they were projecting streams of unbound resonance directly at the base of the seed echo pillar and towards a section of the cavern wall that shimmered with a field of contained energy, the containment field for the entity. Several of the priesthood held glowing crystals, the matriarchal keys. Stop them! Lyra resonated, launching herself forward, firing her resonance projector. Ash followed, the silence expanding around him, a small pocket of calm in the storm of conflicting resonance. The priesthood reacted, some turning to engage Lyra, others maintaining their focus on the seed echo and the containment field. Ash saw his target, the figures holding the keys, the ones fueling the attack on the containment. He couldn't fight them directly, but he had one weapon: his silence. He ran towards the nearest key-bearer, hoping his presence, his disruptive aura, would be enough. The key-bearer turned, projecting a wave of unbound resonance at him. Ash didn't try dodge. He focused the void, pulling the energy in, absorbing the chaos. The priesthood figure cried out as their weapon faltered, their armor patterns flickering violently. Ash pushed forward, focusing the void, absorbing the torrents of unbound resonance directed at him. Each wave hit him like a physical blow, filling his mind with fragmented alien noise. But his silence held, drawing the chaos in, neutralizing it. The priesthood figures staggered as their attacks were swallowed, their armor patterns dimming. They couldn't maintain their assault on the containment field or the seed echo, while also dealing with the human anomaly who turned their weapons against them. Lyra engaged the remaining priesthood, her resonance projector beams precise and effective against those not distracted by Ash. The cavern became a battleground of light and shadow, focused resonance and chaotic noise. Ash reached the first key-bearer, a large, imposing figure whose ornate armor shimmered with power. He stood his ground, letting the unbound resonance wash over him, focusing the void. The figure's projections weakened, their form beginning to tremble. Seeing the opportunity, Ash lunged forward, not with violence, but with intent, reaching for the glowing crystal in the figure's hand. He needed the keys. The figure shrieked as Ash's hand, the source of the consuming silence, loose around the key. The crystal flared, reacting violently to the combined touch of structured resonance, filtered through Ash's contact, and the absorbed chaos. The figure recoiled, shaking uncontrollably, their grip on the key loosening. Ash snatched the crystal. One key, two more to go. The priesthood figures realized what he was doing. They shifted their focus, their attacks converging on Ash, desperate to retrieve the keys and stop the human who was dismantling their power. The pressure on Ash intensified. The chaotic resonance slammed into him from multiple directions, threatening to overwhelm his silence, to tear him apart from the inside out. He grit his teeth, pushing the void wider, deeper, absorbing the screams of 1,000 corrupted echoes. He could feel the deep entity's resonance growing stronger from behind the shimmering containment field, agitated by the conflict, by the proximity of the unbound chaos. and the anchoring silence. It pulsed with immense power, a vast, slow heartbeat that seemed to shake the stone itself. He is succeeding. Stop him. A priesthood voice resonated, frantic. Lyra fought fiercely, covering Ash, but she was outnumbered. Another figure lunged towards Ash, key held high, projecting pure, raw resonance. Ash absorbed it, felt the figure falter, and reached for the second key. As his hand touched the crystal, the deep entity's resonance surged. The shimmering containment field pulsed violently, the stone groaning. A fissure opened in the cavern wall, near the field, energy arcing from within. The entity was reacting. The containment is failing. Lyra cried out, her voice tight with urgency. Ash grabbed the second key, felt the power surge again, his mind reeling from the influx of chaos. He had 2 keys, just one more. But the remaining priesthood figures were closing in, desperate, and the cavern was beginning to collapse. Dust rained from the ceiling, stones shifted with grinding force. The air grew thick with dust and the overwhelming hum of ancient power and encroaching chaos. The third key-bearer, the apparent leader of the remaining priesthood, stood near the edge of the fissure opening in the wall. Bathed in the eerie light leaking from the containment field, he projected a torrent of unbound resonance, laced with deliberate psychic hooks, aimed at controlling Ash, at binding him to the chaos. This wasn't just an attack. It was an attempt at enslavement. Ash felt the hooks trying to taw into his consciousness, to pull him into the storm. He couldn't absorb this passively. He had to resist. He focused his silence, not just as a void, but as a boundary, a wall against the invasion. The resistance was agonizing, a tearing sensation in his mind. He saw the third keybearer silhouetted against the surging energy field, extending a tendril towards the fissure, towards the stirring entity within. They weren't just releasing it, they were trying to guide it, direct it. They were trying to bind the apocalypse. The third keybearer, the high priest of the unbound, stood silhouetted against the fracturing containment field, his tendril reaching towards the encroaching entity. He was attempting to merge the unbound resonance, the seed echo's power, if he could get to it, and the deep entity's raw force into a single controllable weapon. It was madness. Ash felt the psychic hooks of the high priestess attack, probing his mind, seeking a purchase, trying to turn him into a conduit for this monstrous fusion. He focused the void, making his silence not a passive absorber, but an active rejection. It was like pushing back against an invisible wall. The resistance was immense, exhausting. He felt the pressure building within himself, the absorbed chaos warring with the new, invasive hooks. Lyra, seeing his struggle, shifted her focus. She fired a rapid sequence of resonance beams, disrupting the priesthood figures still trying to reach the seed echo pillar, preventing them from gaining control of its energy. Then she turned her projector on the high priest, but his own resonance projection was immense, fueled by his proximity to the deep entity. Lyra's beams seemed to ripple and dissipate against his enhanced shield. Yield. Silence, the high priest's resonant voice boomed, amplified by the burgeoning power. Embrace the true current. Become the heart of the new order. Ash stumbled closer, ignoring the pain tearing at his consciousness, focusing only on reaching the high priest, reaching the last key. He had to break this connection, stop this mad ritual. He extended his hand not to absorb, but to touch, to disrupt at the source. The high priest saw him coming, saw the threat Ash represented to his control. He unleashed a final concentrated torrent of unbound resonance, aimed squarely at Ash's head, laced with every chaotic echo he could muster. It was meant to shatter Ash's mind, to overload his silence, to make him a screaming, broken conduit. Ash met it head-on. He focused the void, pushing his silence outwards. Not just a defense, but an assault. His human will against the alien chaos. The impact was jarring, explosive in his mind. He saw blinding flashes of light, felt the agony of 1,000 alien deaths, heard the roar of the deep entity awakening. He felt something tear within him, a boundary dissolving. But he didn't break. He absorbed it, pulled it in, the entire, agonizing torrent of chaos, focusing it all towards the point of contact, towards the high priest. He reached out, his hand closing around the high priest's arm, near where the last key crystal was clutched. The high priest screamed, a raw, non-resonant sound of pure agony. The uncontrolled torrent of unbound echoes, instead of shattering ash, was pulled through ash, focused by his intent and unleashed back onto the high priest, with devastating effect. The high priest's armor patterns didn't just flicker. They imploded inwards, sparks flying, the ornate plating cracking. His form convulsed. The last key crystal fell from his grasp, clattering onto the stone floor. The high priest collapsed, unconscious, his connection to the deep entity severed, his mind overwhelmed by the very chaos he sought to control. Ash stood gasping, leaning against the seed echo pillar for support, the silence within him ragged and fragile. He could still feel the faint buzz of the absorbed echoes, but the tearing sensation was gone. He'd pushed his silence to its absolute limit, and somehow, impossibly, it had held. He stumbled towards the high priest's fallen form, retrieved the last key. 3 keys. All of them. He looked at the fracturing containment field. The deep entity's resonance was retreating, agitated but no longer actively pushing. The source of the priesthood's amplified power was gone. The ritual was broken. The cavern groaned again, more violently this time. The collapse was accelerating. Lyra reached his side, her multi-eyes scanning him, then the keys in his hand. "You did it," she resonated, her voice filled with something akin to wonder. "You broke their control. You contained the chaos." Ash managed a shaky nod. "Ja." Felt like swallowing a lightning storm made of bad memories. He held up the keys. "Got these. Now what?" The collapse was gaining speed. The stone floor beneath their feet trembled constantly. Dust and debris rained down. "The seed echo," Lyra said, pointing to the glowing pillar. "The matriarch's final protocol." The keys were meant not just to access it, but to activate its core resonance, to anchor the towers, reinforce the containment, if necessary. She took the keys from him, her tendrils closing around the crystals, but it requires a resonance sequence, attuned to the seed echo itself, a resonant key. She looked at Ash, a new intensity in her gaze. "Your silence," just it had allowed you to touch the seed echo, to feel its power. It clicked into place. The seed echo was pure, foundational resonance. His silence was the ultimate anti-resonance. The key sequence wasn't just about inserting the crystals. It was about creating a specific resonant frequency, using the keys in the seed echo's power, a frequency that could only be achieved with the silence in the storm as a counterpoint. "We must activate the anchor," Lyra stated, moving towards the base of the seed echo pillar. Together. This was it, the culmination, their forced alliance, born of accident and necessity, leading to a ritual act that would save the towers or bury them both. Lyra moved towards the base of the seed echo pillar, the 3 matriarchal keys clutched in her tendrils. Ash, still shaky from the resonant battle, followed. The cavern was actively collapsing around them now. The groans of stressed stone constant. Dust thick in the air. They were racing against time, against the destructive protocols designed to seal the deep entity. At the base of the pillar was a complex array of glowing panels and crystalline receptors. Lyra knelt, placing her tendrils on the main panel. The seed echo's deep resonance pulsed, responding to her touch. "The sequence requires the keys to be placed simultaneously in a specific resonant pattern," she explained, her voice urgent, "and anchored by a stable, counterpoint resonance." "Your silence." Ash knelt beside her, the immense, ancient power of the seed echo, humming inches away from him. It felt like pure, unadulterated truth, ancient and powerful. He focused on the void within him, his silence, trying to make it as stable and absolute as possible. Lyra placed the 3 key crystals into 3 receptors around the base of the pillar. They flared with light, connecting to the seed echo's energy. Now Lyra resonated, her voice tense. "Place your hand here." She indicated a central receptor, distinct from the key slots. "And focus your silence. Do not absorb, anchor." Ash nodded, taking a deep breath. He reached out and placed his hand on the central receptor. It was cool, smooth, and vibrated with incredible power. He focused the void, the absence, pushing it against the overwhelming resonance of the seed echo. It was like trying to hold back an ocean with emptiness. The seed echo's light intensified, responding to the keys and Ash's presence. Complex resonant patterns spread across the base of the pillar, guided by Lyra's touch. Ash felt the pressure of the seed echo's power building against his silence, trying to fill the void. He had to maintain the counterpoint, the perfect null space, to stabilize the sequence. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. He could feel Lyra's presence beside him, her focused resonance weaving the pattern with the keys. They're two wildly different forms of interaction with resonance. Her structured flow, his absolute void, were working together, creating something new, something necessary. The combined resonance built, filling the cavern. The groaning of the collapsing stones seemed to lessen, momentarily silenced by the sheer power of the ritual. Light erupted from the seed echo pillar, a blinding pulse that filled the cavern, washing over Ash and Lyra. He felt the deep entity's resonance recoil, pushed back, its connection to the surface severed. He felt the towers themselves resonate, the stone humming with newfound stability. And then he felt something else. As the intense light of the seed echo washed over him, filtered through his silence and anchored by his contact, he felt a connection, not the chaotic, painful influx of unbound echoes, or the deep impersonal hum of the entity. This was different. It was a resonance of pure knowledge, of history, of a species' journey, flowing into him not as a chaotic storm, but as a clear, calm current. It was the seed echo, communicating directly, anchored by his silence, and with it came Lyra's resonance, interwoven with the seed echo's core. He felt her presence, clear and strong, stripped of the tactical masks, revealing the depth of her duty, her grief, and something else, a quiet, intense focus on him. The light subsided, leaving them kneeling at the base of the now steadily pulsing seed echo pillar. The immediate collapse had halted. The cavern was still damaged, but stable. Ash withdrew his hand, breathless, his mind strangely clear, filled with echoes of ancient knowledge and Lyra's own deep, structured presence. Lyra looked at him, her multi-eyes wide, her armor patterns pulsing with a soft, warm light. "The anchor is set," she resonated, her voice softer now, the pure crystalline tone touched with a new resonance. "The pediment holds. The deep entity is sealed." She reached out a tendril, touching his hand where it had rested on the receptor. "In the seed echo, it accepts your silence. It is woven into the anchor. You are part of the towers now." He felt the connection again, not invasive, but resonant, a bond formed through shared purpose in the impossible ritual. He looked at Lyra, seeing not just the alien commander, but the guardian who had revealed her grief, the tactician who had gambled everything on his anomaly. They had faced down zealots and an ancient entity, bound themselves to the heart of an alien civilization, and saved the silent towers together. The seed echo pulsed with a steady golden light, its deep, foundational resonance filling the cavern, a counterpoint to the lingering hum of the resealed deep entity and the faint buzz of the neutralized unbound echoes. The collapse had stopped, the stone groaning settling into a low murmur of stress, a reminder of how close they had come to disaster. Lyra stood, regal even in her segmented armor, the matriarchal keys now somehow integrated into her gauntlet. Ash stood beside her, feeling the strange new connection to the towers and to her, a subtle resonance beneath his skin. The absorbed chaos was gone, filtered, processed, leaving behind only a faint, persistent understanding of the scale of alien history. The priesthood, they are defeated, Lyra resonated. Their high command incapacitated, their source of unbound resonance neutralized. Those who fled the upper layers will be hunted by the remaining archive guard. She looked at the bodies of the fallen priesthood figures. They sought chaos and were consumed by it. Ash felt a weary relief. It was over. The immediate threat, at least. But the towers were damaged, the archive guard depleted, and he was bound to the seed echo. What happens now? Ash asked. To the towers? To us? Lyra turned to him, her multi-eyes studying him with an intensity that held no trace of the initial cold judgment. The towers will heal, slowly. The anchor you helped set will stabilize the resonance. The archive guard will begin the work of restoration. She paused, her gaze deepening. As for us, you are now tied to the seed echo. Your silence is an integral part of the anchor. You cannot leave the towers without disrupting it, without risking the containment of the deep entity. He was stuck, bound to an ancient alien archive by a magical battery and his own weird physiology. It wasn't exactly the journey home he'd envisioned, but strangely, the thought didn't fill him with despair. The vastness of the echoes he'd felt, filtered and calm now, contained immense knowledge. And standing beside Lyra, feeling the steady, strong pulse of her presence through their shared connection to the seed echo, right? Their bond to the anchor. It is not merely functional, Lyra continued, her voice softer, more resonant with emotion now. The seed echo responds to harmony, to balance, your silence and my resonance. They created that balance in the ritual, and in doing so, a connection has been forged. She reached out a tendril, not in a gesture of power or threat, but a connection. Tentative. It brushed his hand again, and he felt that same overwhelming flow of sensation. But this time it wasn't chaotic pain or ancient grief. It was Lyra's core resonance, her identity, her quiet strength, flowing into him, meeting his anchored silence, and alongside it the calm, deep wisdom of the seed echo. It was intimacy on a level that transcended touch, a merging of consciousness and being. He saw glimpses of her world, her struggles, her hopes, through her eyes, filtered by her resonance. It was like seeing the universe through a different spectrum, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that she was feeling him too. His quiet resilience, his wry humor, the deep-seated pain he carried, now laid bare by the anchor's connection. He didn't recoil this time. He met her gaze, his own eyes conveying what his silence couldn't. The bond is profound. Lyra resonated, withdrawing her tendril slightly, though the connection lingered, a resonant echo between them. It is a form of the pulse resonance sync, our matriarch spoke of in the deepest rituals, not of mating, but of integral connection, of two beings becoming one in purpose and being, a ritual bond, forced by crisis, completed by necessity. It wasn't a human marriage, but it was something equally, if not more, binding. He looked at her, this alien woman who had gone from wanting to dissolve him to sharing the core of her being, and he knew he was feeling things he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Hope, connection, a terrifying, exhilarating sense of belonging in the heart of an alien world. So, not going anywhere, huh? Ash said, a small, genuine smile touching his lips. Lyra's armor patterns pulsed, a gentle, radiant light spreading across her form. No. Silence in the storm. Her multi-eyes seemed to soften, if such a thing was possible. You are bound to the seed echo. And to me. The unspoken words hung in the air, thick with possibility. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. A human veteran and an alien commander, bound by ritual forged in crisis, standing together at the heart of a living archive, their futures inextricably linked. There were still challenges ahead. The restoration of the towers, the integration of a human into an alien culture, the complexities of a bond that transcended physical touch. But looking at Lyra, feeling the calm strength of their connection, Ash knew he wouldn't face them alone. The silence within him was no longer just a void. It was an anchor, a foundation for something new, something resonant. Their shared connection to the seed echo, the anchor, became a constant, subtle presence between Ash and Lyra. It wasn't a telepathic link that allowed them to read each other's surface thoughts, but a deeper resonance, an understanding that bypassed language, tapping into core emotions, intentions, and history stored within the towers. Ash still spoke aloud, his dry humor a necessary filter for the intensity of their situation. And Lyra still translated her thoughts into his mind with her crystalline voice. But now there was another layer, a quiet hum beneath the words, that spoke volumes. The restoration of the silent towers began slowly. The remaining archive guard, few in number but fiercely dedicated, rallied under Lyra's command. Ash, using his mechanical and engineering skills, proved invaluable. He couldn't manipulate resonance like Lyra, but he could assess structural damage with a practical eye, jury-rig repair solutions using salvaged parts, and understand systems from a purely mechanical perspective that baffled the resonance-attuned archive guard. His silence near damaged areas helped calm the disturbed echoes, allowing the guard to work more safely. He wasn't just the silence in the storm, he was the human who knew how to fix things, and he was good at it, working side by side in the damaged corridors. Amidst the quiet grief of the displaced echoes, their bond deepens. Lyra's initial coldness had thawed, replaced by a quiet respect, a deep trust, and a growing vulnerability that she struggled to contain. Ash saw the weight of her command, the responsibility she carried, the deep sorrow for her fallen comrades, and the desecration of her world. He saw her grief not as an abstract concept stored in stone, but as a living pain she carried with immense, silent dignity. He shared his own burdens, the quiet failures, the scars that went deeper than bone, not through resonant projection, but through halting words under the flicker of emergency lights. The vulnerability of a human soul laid bare. The cultural misunderstandings continued, sometimes leading to moments of dry humor that cut through the tension. Ash's Earth idioms baffled Lyra, but she found a strange logic in them, a different way of seeing the world. His casual approach to hierarchy and ritual was a source of constant, bemused observation for her. He in turn found himself fascinated by her people's connection to resonance, to their history, to the living memory held within the stone. One evening, while patching a damaged conduit near the seed echo chamber, the air thick with the calm pulse of the anchor, Lyra paused, watching him work. Your methods seem more interested in Craig. They are so physical, she resonated, dependent on the tangible, the broken wire, the leaking fluid. Ash shrugged, wiping grease from his hands. Yeah, well, gravity and thermodynamics are pretty reliable. Less drama than rogue psychic echoes. Lyra was silent for a moment, the light on her armor patterns shifting. We, do too. Rin, were taught that physical reality was secondary, a mere reflection of the true resonant currents. Must make fixing stuff a nightmare, Ash muttered. It is why your presence is so vital, she resonated softly. You see the world in a way we cannot. Grounded, rooted in the physical. It balances our perspective. She stepped closer, her tendrils hovering near his hand. Just as your silence balances the anchor, the connection pulsed between them. A current of shared understanding, of mutual need. It wasn't just about saving the towers anymore. It was about the two of them. Lyra, Ash said, his voice low. He hesitated, unsure how to bridge the gap between their cultures, their forms, the intensity of their bond. She made it easy. Ash, she resonated, using his name, a rare occurrence of direct address. Her tendril extended, brushing his skin again, not tentatively this time, but with deliberate contact. The anchor's resonance surged gently through their connection, weaving them together. Mind and being. He felt her vulnerability, her quiet longing, the profound depth of emotion she kept shielded behind her tactical facade. And he let her feel the steady beat of his human heart, the quiet strength born of survival. Growing, undeniable affection he felt for this extraordinary alien woman. It wasn't a moment of physical passion, not in the human sense, but it was intimacy in its purest form. A merging of souls facilitated by the alien magic of the seed echo and the impossible reality of their bond. The air around them thrummed with the quiet power of the anchor, of the tower's healing, and the silent, profound resonance of two different beings, finding balance and connection in the heart of an ancient alien world.